Why do some people fall deeply in love with you, only to disappear? Is it fate, chemistry, or is there something deeper at play? According to Carl Jung, love is not a random event, nor is it simply physical attraction. In fact, there are only two psychological reasons why someone falls in love with you, and both are deeply connected to the subconscious. Is love a reflection, or just an illusion? Today we will explore how Jung's theory explains attraction, the role of the anima and animus projections, how Zen teachings reveal the truth about human relationships. But before we continue, think about this. Have you ever felt that someone loved you, not for who you truly are, but for what you represented to them? Have you been idealized, only for that person to pull away once the illusion faded? If these questions resonate with you, stay until the end, because this revelation could change your perspective on love forever. Don't forget to subscribe and share your experience in the comments. This is a topic we have all experienced at some point. Love is a mystery that has fascinated humanity for centuries, from ancient philosophers to modern psychologists. Everyone has tried to decode why we fall in love with certain people and not others. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, discovered that love is not a coincidence, nor is it just physical attraction. According to Jung, our romantic relationships are deeply influenced by the subconscious and the way we project hidden aspects of ourselves onto others. Why do we fall in love? According to Jung, there are two fundamental reasons behind love and attraction, both of which are linked to what we feel is missing within ourselves, the image we construct of the other person. But this is where Zen teachings take us even deeper. Is love a true reflection of our inner world, or is it just an illusion we create to fill emotional voids? In this video, we will explore how Carl Jung's theory of projection and Zen philosophy can help you understand why certain people enter your life and what it reveals about you. Stay until the end, because this revelation will forever change the way you understand love and relationships. Love is much more than a fleeting feeling or a spontaneous reaction to another person's presence. For Carl Jung, attraction and love are deeply rooted in the subconscious, in the hidden parts of our mind that shape our decisions without us even realizing it. One of the most important concepts in his theory is projection, a psychological mechanism in which we assign to others characteristics that actually belong to us, but that we are unable to consciously recognize. When we meet someone who stirs intense emotions within us, we are not always responding to the person themselves, but rather to what they represent within our own psyche. Jung explained that we tend to fall in love with aspects we have repressed or desperately seek within ourselves. For example, someone who feels insecure but secretly longs for confidence may fall in love with a person who exudes the security they have not yet developed. Similarly, a person conditioned to suppress their emotions may feel drawn to someone with a strong emotional connection, not because they love them for who they are, but because that person represents a hidden part of their own identity. This idea connects with the archetypes of anima and animus, two key concepts in Jungian psychology. Jung described the anima as the feminine aspect within a man's psyche, while the animus represents the masculine aspect within a woman's mind. According to his theory, many romantic relationships arise because we project these inner images onto others, believing we have found our soulmate. But in reality, what we see in the other person is a reflection of parts of ourselves that we have denied or have yet to fully integrate. The problem with projection is that we do not fall in love with the real person, but with the image we have created of them. In this sense, love is not entirely rational or based on a conscious choice, but rather an unconscious attraction that responds to our internal voids. This is why, when the illusion fades and we begin to see the person as they truly are, the intense love that once seemed unshakable begins to weaken. The person who once seemed like the perfect complement now appears completely different from what we had imagined. This does not happen because they have changed, but because the projection we placed upon them has dissolved. Zen teachings offer a different yet complementary perspective. From a Buddhist Zen point of view, love is not an external search or a need to find someone to complete us. Instead, it is seen as a reflection of our own inner state. If a person lives in emotional emptiness, they will seek someone to fill that space, creating a relationship based on dependency. But if someone already feels whole within, their love for another person will be an extension of that wholeness, not a desperate need to find in another what they believe they lack. In everyday life, this manifests in different ways. Some people feel an instant attraction and believe they have found the ideal partner, only to later realize that the connection was based on unrealistic expectations. There are also relationships in which one partner projects all their frustrations, fears, and unresolved desires onto the other, without realizing they are using them as a mirror of their own inner world. Jung believed that true personal growth and the ability to love authentically only occur when we are able to recognize our projections and consciously withdraw them. In other words, when we stop idealizing others and begin to see them for who they truly are. This is a fundamental teaching in both psychology and Zen. Love should not be an illusion, but a state of understanding and acceptance. The challenge is learning to differentiate between love based on projection and love that arises from the genuine recognition of the other person. Many relationships end in disappointment because people don't realize that what they loved was not the person themselves, but what that person represented to them. And when reality fails to match the fantasy, the love fades. The path to building more authentic relationships begins with self-awareness. Only when we truly understand who we are and accept both our strengths and our shadows can we see others clearly, without distorted filters. From this perspective, love stops being a reflection of our inner voids and becomes a deep connection between two complete individuals who do not seek to fill gaps but to share what they already are. Love, in its purest form, is not simply an attraction to another person, but a reflection of our inner world. Throughout life, many people believe they fall in love because of external qualities, beauty, intelligence, sense of humor. However, from the perspective of deep psychology, the real reason we feel attraction is far more complex. For Carl Jung, love is not a conscious decision, but rather a manifestation of the parts of ourselves we have yet to recognize. One of the most powerful concepts in his theory is the idea of the shadow. The shadow represents the repressed aspects of our personality, everything we have denied, either because society taught us it was unacceptable or because it didn't align with the identity we wanted to create for ourselves. Often, we project this shadow onto others, and this can be one of the main reasons we feel drawn to someone without fully understanding why. When we meet someone who embodies qualities we have not accepted within ourselves, we feel an intense attraction. We may admire their confidence, creativity, or emotional expressiveness, but what we are really seeing is a reflection of something that also exists within us, though we have not yet developed it fully. Jung believed that when we fall in love, we are actually searching to integrate into our own psyche the aspects we have left in the dark. However, when a relationship is built on the projection of the shadow, conflicts will eventually arise. In the early phase, everything seems perfect, but over time, the idealization fades. The person we once saw as extraordinary begins to show who they truly are. If we haven't done deep inner work, we may feel disappointed. This happens because we never fell in love with the real person. We fell in love with what they represented to us. From the Zen Buddhist perspective, love should not depend on illusions or unrealistic expectations. Instead of seeking in another person the solution to our own dissatisfaction, the path to true love begins with self-acceptance. Zen philosophy teaches that love is not a need. It is a natural state that arises when a person is in harmony with themselves. Only when we feel whole within can we share genuine love, free from emotional dependency and unconscious projections. This principle is reflected in how some relationships evolve over time. Some couples are drawn to each other because they feel the other person fills a void in their lives. But when that need disappears, or when the other person fails to meet the expectations created in their mind, the relationship begins to fall apart. Many relationships fail not because love disappeared, but because it was never truly solid to begin with. Jung also spoke about another essential aspect of relationships, the integration of the anima and animus, The anima represents the feminine energy within a man. The animus represents the masculine energy within a woman. When we project these energies onto a partner, we tend to idealize them and see them as our missing half. However, true growth happens when we learn to balance these energies within ourselves, without needing someone else to feel complete. A clear example of this is when a person who has repressed their emotional side feels attracted to someone who is highly expressive. Initially, this may feel like a magical connection, but if the relationship is based on the need for the other to fulfill what is missing within oneself, conflicts will inevitably arise. The only way to avoid this trap is to learn to integrate those aspects into our own lives, rather than depending on someone else to represent them for us. From a Zen perspective, this translates into learning to see reality as it is, without distorting it with our expectations. The moment we stop searching outside for what we must find within, love ceases to be a need and becomes an authentic experience. Instead of using another person as a mirror of our own deficiencies, we can see them for who they truly are, without idealizations or false projections. Ultimately, both Jungian psychology and Zen teachings show us that true love does not arise from need, but from wholeness. If we want to build deep and meaningful relationships, we must first get to know our own shadows, accept our rejected parts, and develop a genuine relationship with ourselves. Only then can we love authentically, without relying on illusions or unrealistic expectations. Love beyond attraction and desire is an experience deeply tied to our identity and perception of the world. Many times, we believe that we consciously choose the person we fall in love with, but in reality, the process is far more complex and is influenced by unconscious psychological factors. Carl Jung discovered that the relationships we form are conditioned by internal aspects that we rarely recognize at first glance. The way we connect with others is influenced by our personal history, our emotional wounds, the expectations we unconsciously project onto others. From childhood, every person develops an internal image of what love and connection mean. This image is shaped by early life experiences, relationships with parents or caregivers' beliefs, absorbed from the surrounding environment. These early experiences form an emotional blueprint that follows us into adulthood. Without realizing it, we repeat patterns in our relationships. Jung called this phenomenon the influence of the collective unconscious, a set of shared human experiences that shape our decisions and emotions without us noticing. When we meet someone, our subconscious immediately evaluates whether that person fits into the emotional patterns we have internalized. If they resemble important figures from our past, or if they connect with unexplored parts of ourselves, we feel an instant attraction. However, this does not necessarily mean the connection is genuine or healthy. In many cases, what attracts us is not the person themselves, but rather how they awaken deeply rooted emotions within us. From a deep psychological perspective, many relationships arise from the need to heal old wounds. For example, someone who experienced abandonment as a child may feel strongly attracted to emotionally distant individuals. At a conscious level, this seems contradictory. At an unconscious level, it is an attempt to relive the past in order to correct it. The mind seeks to face the same situation again, hoping that this time the outcome will be different. However, in most cases, this dynamic only leads to more pain and frustration. From a Zen perspective, love should not be a reflection of our deficiencies, nor a search for what we think we lack. True connection is not based on need, but on freedom. In Zen teachings, it is said that authentic love does not seek to cling or possess, but simply allows one to be. This is why Zen philosophy teaches that the purest love is not born from the fear of being alone, nor from the need for validation from another person. Instead, it comes from an inner state of wholeness, a love that is free, complete, and unconditional. When a person is able to love and accept themselves fully, embracing both their light and shadow, they no longer seek another as a remedy for their pain. Instead, they see love as an expansion of what already exists within them. In this type of relationship, there is no dependency nor fear of losing the other, because the bond is not built on the need to fill a void, but on the desire to share what one already is. Carl Jung also spoke about the importance of individuation, the process through which a person integrates all aspects of their personality, both those they consider positive and those they have tried to hide. For Jung, the most authentic love can only arise between two people who have reached a certain level of self-awareness and internal balance. When this happens, the relationship ceases to be a refuge for insecurity and instead becomes a space for mutual growth and discovery. From this perspective, love is no longer a desperate search for someone to complete us, but rather a connection built on truth and authenticity. Instead of idealizing the other person or projecting onto them our expectations, we learn to see them as they truly are, with their strengths and imperfections. Only when we are able to look at the other without the distortions of our projections can we experience a love that is not conditioned by fear, dependency, or the need for approval. Love that arises from mindful awareness is completely different from love rooted in lack. When someone loves from a place of need, the bond is fragile, subject to constant emotional highs and lows. But when love is born from a state of balance, it becomes a source of support and mutual growth. In this kind of relationship, differences are not seen as threats, but as opportunities to learn and evolve together. The journey to achieving this kind of love is not easy. It requires introspection. It demands the willingness to face our own shadows. It calls for the ability to see beyond the illusions our subconscious creates. But when we achieve it, we experience a love that does not depend on external factors, nor on temporary circumstances. It is a love that does not seek to possess or control, but simply flows, like a river that follows its course without resistance. Love, as we conceive it, is not always what it seems. Often what we believe to be a genuine connection with another person is merely a reflection of our own emotions, unresolved desires, and hidden aspects of our personality. We don't just fall in love with the person in front of us, we fall in love with what we project onto them. This truth can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. Carl Jung taught us that love is not a random act, but a manifestation of our inner world. When we understand that our relationships reflect our own needs and shadows, we stop seeking in others what we can only find within ourselves. If we continue chasing love in hopes of filling a void, we will inevitably face disappointment. But if we first learn to recognize and accept all that we are, our way of loving will change completely. Zen Teachings remind us that love is not a need, it is an expression of wholeness. A peaceful heart does not desperately search for love. It does not cling to someone out of fear of loneliness. It does not confuse intensity with real connection. Instead, it allows love to flow naturally, without forcing it, without turning it into a desperate quest for validation. So, the final question is this: did the people who loved you truly see you for who you are, or did they simply find in you something they deeply longed for? Reflect on this, because when you understand the true nature of love, you no longer suffer from someone's absence or from relationships that didn't work out. You learn to see every encounter as a mirror that helps you understand yourself better. And when love finally comes to you, you will know how to differentiate between a bond based on need and an authentic connection that does not depend on time or circumstances. If this message resonated with you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever felt that someone loved you not for who you are, but for what you represented in their life? Subscribe and join me on this journey of inner exploration. See you in the next reflection.